King Charles may finally be starting to realise that there is absolutely no reason to work with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle.
The Sandringham invite getting pulled is a loud message from Charles. No question. It's the clearest move he's made since that Australian tour wrapped, and insiders aren't being vague about it either. A source close to the king confirmed Charles will not invite Harry and Meghan this summer, and the Australia trip is exactly why. They even called it the straw that broke the camel's back. After years of taking hits, the Oprah interview, Netflix drama, Spare, public speeches, and all the noise around titles this time crossed a line Charles wasn't willing to ignore. Now here's where it gets strategic. Harry wasn't sitting around waiting for an invite. He went public, saying the family would consider going to Sandringham.
Portier's brief to the Daily Mail, oh no, we're not going to punish them, we don't want to upset them, the titles aren't going to go, the line of succession isn't going to go. No, you've got to do something, Charles, because this is getting worse. And they're embarrassing you. They're embarrassing you in Ukraine. They're embarrassing you in Washington, D.C. They're embarrassing you on the internet.
Like it was some open option. That framing wasn't random. It put pressure on Charles while making it seem like Harry was open to fixing things. But people caught on fast. The move shifted responsibility onto Charles while quietly setting conditions. It looked like peace, but came with strings attached. Critics even called it emotional pressure played through the media. And the biggest pressure point? The grandchildren. Charles has barely seen Archie and Lilibet, and that distance clearly hits deep. That bond never had the chance to grow, and that's one of the most personal losses in this whole situation. Harry knows that, and it shows. By tying visits to specific conditions, especially involving William and Catherine, it turns that emotional gap into leverage. The message feels clear. Meet the terms or miss out. Charles stepping back from the invitation is him drawing a line. It comes at a real cost. He won't see his grandchildren, but it also shows he's refusing to be pushed into a corner like that.
Of course, it would depend on who was there, aka William and Catherine. And it was, at the time, it was blatant emotional blackmail for the king. However, the king and the palace did put something out, a statement out that was quite strongly worded. And, you know, he would love to meet his grandchildren. He's only met Lily once for a hot second, Archie possibly twice.
This decision isn't just personal, it carries serious institutional weight too. Not inviting them sends a clear message. Actions have consequences. If everything from the Australia tour to the public moves around titles and speeches brought zero pushback, it would only push things further next time. So the withdrawal is the consequence. And it lines up with the legal pressure already building behind the scenes. Ongoing lawsuits and defamation claims had already made any invite tricky, even before the Australia situation made it worse. Here's the bigger issue. If Charles invited someone currently tied up in a lawsuit accusing them of running a coordinated media campaign against a charity figure, it could look like the monarchy is taking sides. That's not something a king can risk while the case is still active. So, even before the tour drama, the invite was already on thin ice, legally. After everything else, it became completely off the table. Now add the financial side, and things get even more intense. Reports say the Sussex operation is under real pressure. The inheritance from Diana has mostly been used, legal fees are massive, around $38 million, and security alone is costing about $3 million every year. On top of that, income streams aren't scaling the way expected. Speaking gigs, brand deals, and product launches aren't fully covering the high-cost lifestyle. Some insiders say there's about a 5-year window before major changes are needed. And this is where Sandringham comes back into play. A royal invite would mean state-funded security, instantly removing one of the biggest financial burdens. That's a huge shift. Sources claim that's the real focus, not sentiment, not family bonding, but cutting costs. The pressure is building fast, and that makes the push for Sandringham look a lot more strategic than emotional. Charles pulling that invitation hits the target directly. It shuts down every angle, no security coverage, no royal backing, no close access that the struggling Sussex brand badly needs right now. And more than anything, it sends a sharp message.
The media and said, well, of course, we'd entertain. We'd love to have an invitation, something along the lines of we'd entertain an invitation to Sandringham. Of course, he wants that because if you're invited by the king, you automatically get state-funded security, which is all he cares about. He doesn't want to spend any more dollars of his own.
What happened on that Australia tour wasn't okay, and it won't be rewarded. Then there's the Kyiv speech, and this is where things really stand out. Harry has been vocal about concern for his father, talking about illness, urgency, and fixing family ties before time runs out. But the timing of that speech tells a very different story. Just 3 days before Charles headed into a demanding state visit to Washington while dealing with cancer treatment, Harry stepped onto a global stage and criticized U.S. leadership over Ukraine policy. That trip for Charles wasn't light work either. It included multiple stops and serious diplomatic pressure, all while managing his health. That kind of timing creates real strain, no way around it. Medical experts have long pointed out that stress can affect how patients handle treatment and recovery, especially with serious illnesses. And the people closest to Charles are fully aware of that. William, in particular, has been clear: reducing unnecessary stress around the king isn't optional, it's critical. That's why moments like the Kyiv speech carry weight beyond headlines. It wasn't just another public comment, it added pressure at a time when stability actually mattered most. Charles walked into Washington already dealing with pressure, knowing his own son had just publicly criticized the very leadership he needed to work with. That timing alone puts things in a tough spot. Now, there are two ways people are reading Harry's actions. The softer view is that he's just not thinking things through, that he doesn't fully see how his public moves ripple out and affect others, especially at that level. But the harsher take is that he knows exactly what he's doing, that staying visible, grabbing attention, and boosting his own platform matters more than any diplomatic fallout. And according to insiders, that second version is getting more support. Sources describe him as extremely focused on himself, always needing that spotlight, always finding a way to stay in the headlines no matter the cost around him. That's where the tension really builds. Then there's the media angle, and this adds another twist. US Weekly's recent cuts and office shutdown tell a bigger story about the industry shifting. During Dan Wakeford's time, the outlet leaned heavily into pro-Sussex coverage, trying to mirror that celebrity access formula that once worked so well. But it didn't land the way they expected. The audience didn't fully follow, revenue didn't scale, and now the result is major downsizing. That's not just bad timing, that's a signal that the strategy itself didn't hold up. The bigger picture? Media outlets that went all in on that narrative aren't seeing the same returns anymore. Even one of the strongest supporters is now pulling back hard. And here's where frustration comes in. Some voices have been saying these same things for years, long before mainstream coverage caught up. Now that insiders are confirming it, those earlier perspectives are finally getting attention, but it feels late. Still, more voices lining up with the facts only strengthens the bigger picture. Even if it took time, the shift is becoming harder to ignore. Access journalism comes with a catch, and it's a big one. To keep that inside connection, outlets have to stay on good terms with the people they cover. And that usually means holding back anything that could upset them. So what's the trade-off? Accuracy takes a hit, while access and the money that comes with it stays intact. But once that relationship breaks, like when Wakeford left US Weekly, everything changes. The filter disappears, and suddenly, more direct reporting starts to show up. That's the core problem. Access journalism and honest reporting don't mix well when the subject is carefully controlling their image. You either keep the connection, or you tell the full story. You rarely get both. And in this case, the Sussex operation is seen as one of the most tightly managed media setups around. Outlets with access reported the polished version they were given, while those without it focused on what could actually be observed. And that observable picture, it's backed by polling data, financial reports, and insider sourcing. Public support numbers, financial pressure, and a slowing commercial engine are all pointing in the same direction. The Sandringham decision lines up with that reality. It's not random, it reflects growing limits. What was once tolerated has now hit a wall, and the institution is finally reacting in a visible way. What happens next will matter. The summer becomes the test. Does this firm stance stick or shift again? Some analysts point to Denmark as the model. The Danish queen made a bold move, cutting titles for extended family and keeping them only for the direct line. It caused tension at first, no doubt. But over time, even those affected admitted it made sense. It removed pressure, clarified roles, and avoided long-term fallout. A similar move in the UK would redraw those same lines. Titles and styles would be limited to working royals, while others keep different roles without the same status. It's a clean reset and one that's getting harder to ignore. The children would still keep their names, but the royal titles tied to them wouldn't carry weight anymore. That means using Prince Archie or Princess Lilibet in branding like product descriptions or domains loses the official backing that made it valuable in the first place. And that's the key shift. The whole half-in, half-out setup falls apart once the institutional support is removed. Without that royal link, the commercial angle doesn't hit the same. This approach has been pointed out as a clean and balanced option. It's already been shown to work in another monarchy, proving it's not just theory, it's doable. Charles has the power to make that call, no question. But whether he actually does it or leaves it for William later is still up in the air. That timing has been one of the biggest unknowns in how this situation unfolds.
Harry's visit to Ukraine and his attack on Donald Trump and the American administration specifically, literally 4 days before King Charles is touching down in Washington, D.C. To me, that was the ultimate slight to his father.
What's clear now is that things are starting to move, even if it's slow. The Sandringham withdrawal isn't a full overhaul. It's not stripping titles or issuing formal orders. It's the smallest step possible, but it's still a step. And it matters because it's the first time there's been a visible consequence tied directly to that Australia tour. That alone changes the tone. Behind the scenes, influence likely played a role too. Early messaging suggested there wouldn't be fallout, but that clearly didn't hold when it came down to the actual decision. The voice that did carry weight, the one calling the tour the straw that broke the camel's back, that phrasing isn't casual. It signals a line was crossed and a decision was locked in. This wasn't still being debated, it was settled. The Hugo Vickers confirmation adds another layer to this pattern, and it's hard to ignore. A claim once dismissed suddenly gets validated years later. Back in 2020, reports suggested serious concerns about private conversations being recorded, and that idea was brushed off as conspiracy talk. Fast forward to 2026, and a trusted insider confirms those exact fears were real. That's a 6-year gap between early reporting and official acknowledgement. And during that time, everything kept moving, public actions, commercial deals, media narratives, without any real institutional pushback. That delay comes at a cost. When access-driven coverage and careful silence take priority, the truth surfaces late after the impact has already built up. By the time confirmation lands, the situation has already played out for years. Now the Sandringham withdrawal starts to look different. If it holds, it marks the first real sign of consequences after a long stretch of inaction. 6 years of events with little response, and now there's finally a shift. At the same time, Charles's Washington trip highlights a sharp contrast. He's stepping into a demanding diplomatic role, pausing treatment, handling a packed schedule, all in service of national interest. There's no brand deal attached, no personal gain angle. It's duty, plain and simple. That's what the role is designed for. And right alongside that, Harry appears on an international stage, criticizing leadership just days before the visit. The timing alone draws a clear line between two very different approaches. One is about service, responsibility, and long-term stability. The other centers on visibility and personal platform. The Sandringham decision reflects that divide. It's not the biggest action possible, but it's a clear signal. It shows that one path is being reinforced while the other is no longer being quietly accepted. This isn't title removal, not yet. This is the opening move. And with summer approaching, everything is lining up for what comes next. The state visit will play out, security reviews will land, court cases will move forward, and that Sandringham gate, still shut for now, what's happening is a slow shift toward the clarity that was first outlined back in 2020, but delayed for years. That long stretch of absorbing hit after hit may finally be ending. The key point? The breaking point has already happened. Now the real question is simple: does the institution act on it or go back to tolerating more of the same? Then comes the Charlotte Griffith angle, and this part changes things fast. Messages revealed through legal proceedings have backed up her claims in a way that can't be brushed aside. For a long time, her account was doubted, especially against sworn statements. But now there's proof, and that flips the narrative completely. People who once leaned the other way are reassessing because the evidence is right there. That's the power of documentation. Once receipts show up, it's no longer one story versus another, it's facts versus denial. And this isn't an isolated moment. Other cases and records have done the same thing, each one adding weight, each one making it harder to dismiss what's been reported. Griffith speaking more openly now isn't random. It's happening because her credibility is finally locked in by evidence. That's the pattern that keeps repeating. Claims sit in doubt until documents surface. And once they do, the entire conversation shifts permanently. There's also a limit to how long denials can hold. They work only until something concrete appears. After that, the contrast becomes part of the public record, and it doesn't go away. The Daily Mail case has already dropped documents that clash directly with sworn statements, and more could be coming. Ongoing legal processes and reviews are expected to add even more records into the mix. Each new document tightens the space where a carefully managed narrative can still operate. At the same time, the media landscape around this is shifting fast. A few outlets still hold on to that insider access model, but that circle is shrinking. The shutdown of one major publication tied to that approach shows the commercial reality it's not hitting like it used to. What's changing now is how different outlets are handling the story. Some are starting to run insider sourcing alongside more polished narratives, and that creates a visible split in coverage. For readers paying attention, the contrast is getting harder to miss. You've got sourced claims, polling data, and public reporting all sitting side by side. That mix gives people the ability to compare, question, and draw their own conclusions in a way that wasn't as clear before. The invitation withdrawal, the Wakeford confirmation, the Charlotte Griffith messages, the fallout from the Kyiv speech, and even the US weekly shutdown, this is all part of the same week's record. And it's locked in. These aren't isolated moments, they connect. The polished narrative will keep moving through the usual outlets that still back it. But at the same time, the other side, independent reporting, documents, and hard data, is building its own version of events. And now, both are out there for anyone to compare. That's where things shift. The information is no longer controlled in one direction. People can see both sides, line them up, and decide what actually holds weight. And here's the reality. Once that breaking point is hit, it doesn't just reset because things go quiet. It changes the path going forward. Then you've got Charles, visibly strained, still stepping up, still recommitting to duty in a major address. That's a clear signal he's not stepping back, no matter the pressure. And in that exact same window, the call was made: no Sandringham invite, no stooping to pressure. Two decisions, same week, same person, and that contrast says everything. If you made it this far, drop a comment with your thoughts, hit like, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.